What's going on, everybody? This is EA Green, the CEO of the Open Media Agency, and this week we got another good one for you. We have a video where I was asked to host a fireside chat by the Winston-Salem Urban League with Max Maxwell, who is a serial entrepreneur and wholesale real estate guru. And yes, I said guru. So we had a conversation with Max Maxwell where we kind of talked about the different ways up the mountain of success. Right, some people has education and it's corporate life. Some is entrepreneurship, right? And we're going to kind of talk about how he used real estate as a way to get in, but it also helped fund the rest of those dreams that he had. All right, so let's take a look of this week's video.
Winston-Salem Urban League young professionals and friends and family, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for another Lunch and Learn. My name is Abria Armstrong, and I am president of the Winston-Salem Urban League young professionals, and I'm so delighted to have your company and pleasure. And just to tell you a little bit more about us, who we are a group of under 45-ish, though, you know, we do believe in a large family, but under 45 to 21-ish group of young professionals here in Winston-Salem who gather together for social fellowships, community service, civic engagement, as well as great programming that deals with professional development and enrichment, such as our Lunch and Learn series. And this year, we've been very fortunate to kick it off with Trinity Manning and have also featured Janae Adams as well as Fernando Little. And today, I am very excited to be able to add Max Maxwell to that canon of YP, IP, if you will. And so I also want to take the time to encourage everyone to leave your questions in the comments, and we will get to them as Eric sees fit. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to our host, Mr. E.A. Green. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Abria. Appreciate you. All right, what's going on, everybody? My name is E.A. Green. I'm the CEO of the Open Media Agency, and I have the pleasure to be hosting this fireside chat with the one and only Max Maxwell. Basically, I feel like I'm a little biased because I've got a chance to know Max over the last year or so. And, you know, we've just in that short time frame, I've learned so much and gained so much from him, but I'm going to let him do the honors and just kind of start rolling out, you know, basically his rap sheet, right? You know, his resume of why he is so dope and why he is the perfect person to talk to you guys here today.
Appreciate it, EA. I don't know about the whole so dope and so thing, man. So just to give you guys a base, I'm from Winston-Salem. I've been here since I was a kid. I'm in Winston-Salem now. And, you know, I've been through some ups and downs in life, but I think perseverance has got me to the point where I am now. And that's just, you know, never giving up. I'm an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. I own several companies, including a real estate investment firm. And I also do a lot of YouTube and social media stuff. But you know, at the end of the day, I'm just like you guys. I'm just like everybody else here. I'm just I'm an entrepreneur that never gave up, and I enjoy my failures and I keep going. So I hope that set the road for you, EA.
Yes, most definitely. So the conversation, like the way that I really wanted to have this conversation here today is kind of like almost like the road less traveled, right? So it's one of those situations that kind of going the unconventional route in terms of, you know, going up that mountain of success. All right. So you talked about briefly about your, you know, being raised in Winston-Salem, but can you give a little bit more background in terms of that roadmap to how you, jumped into real estate, right? Because I know there's a couple of different, you know, twists and turns that took place along the way.
Yeah, you know, for me, so I'm a first generation American to Jamaican parents that moved to Winston-Salem in 1993. And, you know, for me, I've, you know, we've never grew up rich at all. I definitely didn't know what poor was. I mean, my mom did everything she could to make sure that we had everything we needed. You know, even when sometimes it was the biggest struggle. So I think a lot of my perseverance and a lot of my go get attitude comes from her work ethic. And so I've adopted that. And so, you know, I went to South Fork Kennedy Middle School and then went to Western Side High School. And I wasn't a great student. You know, I'm dyslexic. So I didn't read that well. It takes me a little bit longer to read things than most people. I see things backwards sometimes as far as letters and numbers when I am reading. But, at the end of the day, graduated high school, barely had a 2.0 GPA average. So I never was able to play sports beyond when report cards came out, I was done, right? You got to go to a little bit of, one-on-one counseling and mentor. And then after that, if your grades don't improve, then they kick you off the team. And so that was my cycle pretty much through high school. And I never had couldn't keep a 2.0. So definitely wasn't going to college at that point. And decided at 17 that I was going to go to the military. So I went to United States Air Force at 17. And once I got out and did my first term there, I got out and said, I want to be in real estate. And, everybody's typical journey is I'm going to go get licensed and start buying and selling other people's property, which you guys may know as a realtor. And I did that for a while, but it didn't really tickle my fancy. It didn't really give me what I needed. I felt like I was just driving people around, showing them properties and stuff. And then I got into the investment and property management side. And that was simply just by saying yes. Somebody said, hey, can you manage my portfolio? I got a friend that has a portfolio. Are you willing to do that? I had no idea what I was doing. And I said yes. And I ended up managing his portfolio for a while. And then 2008 happened. For people that know, the economy collapsed and real estate market went down. And at that point, I got out of real estate and I just thought the world was over. And at that time, I'm like 24, 25, not really knowing what's going to happen. So I just bounced around for a while, California, a bunch of other places, and then came back home around 2000 and I would say 15 or so. And at that point, I decided, to go into start an app, and the app failed, right? I enjoyed my failures. I said that in the beginning, because it taught me some things. And then when the app failed, I was really down and out. I had nothing. I was living off my credit card. I was paying rent with my credit card, just some things that you're never supposed to do being financially responsible. Right. And then I hit a dead end. And then I had to move back home with my mother at the age of 30. It was a very humbling experience for me.
No, I definitely understand that. So I just want to kind of paint the timeline a little bit, right? So, so you were in the Air Force and you came back and then you're trying to figure out what was going to work for you, right? So I heard you list a couple of things. So can we just list those out one more time? How many, businesses or attempts in entrepreneurship did you take before wholesaling hit, right? Because, we all looking for that, looking for that one hit record that's going to, take you off. So
it's never a one hit record. It's a bunch of singles and probably a bunch of bad ones, right? So I did real estate as a realtor. I did a lawn care company. I had a notary service. I started a mobile detailing service. I opened up a car lot. I've had 2 failed restaurants that I was, I can keep going, right? So I had a bunch of things. And one day I listed them out. It was about a dozen. And then I finally found my journey back to real estate, but I wanted to be an investor. All right. But I didn't have any money. So how do you invest with no money? And so I had to find a creative way to invest in real estate. And I found a niche in real estate investing called wholesaling. And that propelled me to the point where I was able to then have money. And then once I had money, I had to become financially literate about money and how to use it and how to invest. And that's, we get to the point where we are now. And, I've done many hundreds of transactions so far in real estate, and I continue to buy dozens of properties every month. Some I keep, some I flip. But yeah, I mean, it's a journey of my failures. And I wouldn't be here today without my failures. And I think one of the big reasons a lot of people don't try something is because they have this fear of failing. And I think the fear of failing comes from what other people will say about you when you do fail, and not necessarily how you feel when you fail. So I would caution people to kind of ignore the outside to that, if that makes sense.
Nah, most definitely. But for those that may not know, right? Can you explain the difference between, I guess, the conventional real estate route in terms of being licensed versus what wholesaling is?
Yeah, so I'm not licensed at all. I'm not a licensed real estate person anymore. I gave that up back in 2008. So as an investor, you can wholesale anything, right? I can wholesale this pen. I can wholesale, anything that you see out there. Essentially, it's getting something, acquiring something at a lower price and selling it at a higher price to somebody else. And one thing about wholesaling real estate, and the details kind of matter a little bit, but we find deeply discounted properties. And with that, I put these properties under contract with the intent to buy. And then I find somebody else who wants it more than I do. And essentially they buy my contract from me. And that contract is worth something to somebody else, right? So if I get a property under contract for $50,000 and it's worth $150,000 and it needs repairs, somebody will pay me that's in the business of flipping property to step in my place on that contract and then execute it as it was written in the beginning. And that's the simplicity of what wholesaling is getting something under contract and selling your rights to that contract. And we do it every day. And you see things every single day that you deal with that you don't really know that's been wholesaled.
Right, I understand. So, thank you for that explanation, right? Because I know until I met you, I didn't even understand that what wholesaling was, or if it was even a thing, right? Or that it could be done within like that real estate market, right? So I know, most people or most individuals, they always kind of see what the end result is, right? But you don't really hear too many people talk about the journey. And I know that you pride yourself in sharing your journey and sharing the ups and downs. Like, so can you take us to like the 30 day, not 30 days, but like that brief moment before you made that first deal as a wholesale?
For me, I was in a very depressed time at 30 years old, almost 31, living back at home with my mother. And I knew I had to do something different, right? I knew that I wasn't meant to be down. And, so I when I discovered it, I just became completely obsessed with the idea of learning it. And I did studying on my own. Every podcast I can listen to, every YouTube channel I can watch, every resource that had anything to do with this topic, I just became obsessed for about 3 weeks, about a month. And I had an old Volkswagen Jetta that I drove around. I had no money in my account. And I overdraft my account one last time to put some gas in the car, right? And then went out and started applying all these things that I learned. And I drove around for a few days and I found a property in an old neighborhood I grew up in. And I contracted that property for a very, very low price, $30,000. And I still remember the address. I still remember the seller. I still remember the buyer. And when I contracted it for $30,000, I sold my contract for $14,000. So I end up, the total price for that property was $45,000 to the end buyer. And so they gave me, $45,000, $44,000, somewhere around there. They gave me $14,000 for my contract. The seller got their $30,000. And now you go from negative $300 in your account to now you have $14,000 available to you. And
what was that moment like? Like, that when you seen that surrealness, that when that check cleared?
For me, it wasn't even the money, right? It was more of I figured my way out, right? And it's like if you're digging your way out of a hole and you finally see like light, and you're like, so it's not so much like that shovel movement that mattered. It's like I now know for sure I can keep digging and I'm going to get my way out of this hole. And so that's what it was for me. And that's why I say, all of us are one deal away, one concept away, one sale away from believing that moment of everything we've applied and all the failures we had in life. And then getting to that point where you're like, okay, now I just need to repeat this action. And once you get a taste of it, you're going to go and go and go and go. And in that first year, I made over $800,000 that year.
No, most definitely. I definitely understand that. So when you talked about the one deal away. So that kind of tells me that, I guess you are like not an internal processor, but you're able to like understand the journey that you took, right? Understand the wins, the losses, or the learnings, right? Or the opportunities that you have. So what are some of the earlier things that you, other than like the one deal away piece, like what are some other pieces that you learned during that process as of being an entrepreneur to where you were able to essentially repeat the same process over and over again, right? Because it's not easy to say, hey, I made my first deal and then it just happens right away, right?
No, it takes a lot of time. I mean, I was fortunate to get my first deal fairly quickly, but I think there was a lot of back work to get to that point, right? A lot of my failures from the past businesses got me to the point where I was like, okay, I remember this. I'm okay. Don't do it this way because I remember from one of my failures, this happened, and so on and so forth. And once you once you start eliminating those mistakes you made in the past for this new venture, then your learning curves become a little shorter. Um, but you're right. Yeah, it comes down to a lot of work and grind. I mean, there's nobody's going to hand this to you. You have to believe in yourself. And I think that was the number one thing was like, I'm going to bet on me. I'm going to bet on myself that I know what I'm doing and I'm going to go out and make it happen. And when you do that, I mean, listen, I'm going to bet on the jockey every time. And that's me, right? Forget the horse. I'm going to bet on myself. And once you believe in yourself, it becomes a pattern that you can start applying the same measures to any businesses. And that's why I own several now, because it's the same thing. It's the same exact thing.
So that I'm gonna bet on me thing, that is something that I just want to kind of sit on that for a minute, because that's such a gem, right? I had to learn that the hard way. I think because you see these different opportunities, you see like you're depending on where you're at in your life, you might be looking at it from a place of scarcity or a place of excess, right? The mindset that you might have, but going into the aspect of betting on yourself just really kind of just changes the game, right? Because no matter what, that sets that level of accountability. And that says that no matter what happens, like if I win, like it's on my efforts. If I lose, that's all my efforts. Right. And of course, that does get you up to a certain point, right? Because after a certain point, in order to scale, in order to grow, you have to remove yourself or fire yourself out of these different roles or these different tasks in order to continue to grow your business or to grow your endeavors. So can you talk about how that looked for you in terms of when you knew that you needed to start implementing these different systems or bringing on different people into your organization so that you can essentially fire yourself from these roles?
Yeah, I mean, firing yourself from certain tasks is important, right? So now I've only focused on the revenue generating task in my business. And when I got to a point where we had more customers than we had product, or we had more calls than we had people to answer, or we had more voicemails than we were able to listen to, I started to realize that I needed to outsource some of these tasks. And one thing I did is I knew that, I had the money coming in, but I wanted to work virtual. I end up finding the word virtual assistant somehow, some way. And I was able to use VAs till this day. I still have the same ones, 4+ years, 5 years working with me. And they work overseas. They work in the Philippines, and they answer some of the phone calls. They do some of the admin work. But even at the end of the day, it's still betting on me, right? Because as I bring these people in, I have to train them to my expectations of how I do things. And nobody's going to be 100% of you, but if you can get to the point where you're 75%, and then some people you may hire may actually be better than you are at that task or whatever their job description is than you are. So it's important to, one, recognize yourself, be self-conscious of who you are and what you're good at and what you're bad at, and place yourself in those positions that you can thrive in, and also have enough self-conscious where you can give away some responsibilities based upon, whatever that you're not that great at it, or it's not just a revenue generating task.
So I definitely understand that in terms of like the virtual assistant aspect, bringing this different help like into your organization so you can start removing these the mundane tasks, right? The things that are necessary but are not necessarily value add. So I definitely understand so where that comes from, right? And and essentially the level of relief that you might receive from being able to not having to like check your emails to see if a deal's coming in, right? Or you can like start to eliminate some of the steps that you personally have to do, but so that you can do what you're best at, right? So just I guess this is a moment to kind of see where your mindset is. Like, what do you feel like is your most valuable trait to your organization in terms of knowing that you are finding virtual assistants or different individuals to help you on your team? What are some of the traits that you feel like that you say, hey, this is what I'm best at, and this is what I need to do?
For me, one was sales. So I never wanted to give up the sales side of the business until I found somebody that was comparable. And then two, being the visionary is important, right? I become, because of learning who I am, I understand that I'm not so much an integrator, right? I'm not the implementator of these ideas. So me coming up with the ideas and then being able to have my team believe in the ideas makes it easier for me to go out and keep being the visionary and have people go out and implement it. And so when your team believes in your vision, they'll go out and execute for you. And I think that's number one. If you can't get them to believe in your vision, then they're not going to be able to execute on your behalf for you.
Nah, I definitely understand that. So what I want to do is I kind of want to get into the fun part now. So I feel like most people, they may or may, like I say, may or may not, but they may or they may have seen you on social media, on YouTube and things of that nature, right? So can you talk us about what brought you to start your YouTube channel, right? And why did you feel like that was the best tool in order for you to essentially market your business?
Yeah. So for me in the beginning, I never really set out to be a YouTuber or an influencer. It was never my thing. So when I started recording my day-to-day journey, it was more about holding myself accountable and maybe sharing these videos on my personal Facebook to my friends so that they can keep me accountable. It was never that I'm going to go out and try to make videos that go viral. And as I started doing more and more videos, people were asking me questions in these comments on the YouTube and saying, hey, this and hey, that. And so I would find myself doing another video to answer these questions, the most common questions. And then it just became a thing where I'm now documenting my life. And I went out and hired a videographer that goes with me every day. But as I did that, I intentionally started to make content to build a brand. And brand is number one, right? No matter what you are, marketing and sales are the two things you need in every business. And so marketing, I started to market myself versus my company. And I started to market myself as the expert in this field. And everybody should have their own brand, whether it's local, national. You need to have your own brand and you need to be in charge of delivering your own message. And so that's so important, to where my brand now even makes a few $1 million a year just having a brand. So I think it's important that everybody makes a brand, not necessarily go out and be a social influencer, but just make a brand so that, it's easier to sell your product. It's easier to market your product, and people start to begin and trust who you are when they see you're trustworthy, and it makes just everything easier.
So I just want to make sure that people don't miss that, right? So you're saying that building that brand, right, helped you establish credibility in what 100%. You're talking about, right? 100%. So I can imagine that on the internet with, social media or YouTube, there's tons of people who are probably saying these different things about wholesale real estate or, entrepreneurship.
There is now. There wasn't in the past.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. So there is now. So, but you're saying that establishing that brand really kind of helps, kind of build that relationship with that end user or that potential client, sometimes it could be an employee, right? So,
correct.
Like really establishing that. Because I guess reason why I'm kind of rehashing that is because I think, especially within the African American community, I think that we are placed into a position sometimes where, yes, we are, we may have a Black owned business, right? And we are placed into these boxes, right? Where either someone says, hey, this is a Black owned studio, but they think that it's only for Black people. Mm-hmm. Or they think, you say, hey, I'm doing this, and they think that no one else is kind of invited within that space. Right. So knowing that you're saying, establishing brand, have you seen any of those things, or can you talk towards that about the kind of debunk that myth almost?
Yeah. I think what happens is you have to be careful with your messaging that you don't alienate any of your customers or your potential customers. It's obvious I'm a Black man, proud to be a Black man. But it's also, I don't need to go out and kind of alienate some of my customers by saying Black owned, Black owned, Black owned. It's obvious who I am, right? And you need to, your messaging just needs to be crafted correctly. Now you can't, obviously you need to let people know you're a Black owned business because there's people want to support who you are, but don't alienate any customers that you could potentially have, because everybody, your services are great for everybody, no matter what it is. I don't care if you're cooking food, selling hot dogs, all the way to remodeling bathrooms. Your services are for everybody, right? You just happen to be a Black owned business, and be proud that you're a Black owned business, but make sure that you don't alienate potential customers. I hope that kind of answers your question. Yeah.
Nah, most definitely. Most definitely. All right. So now you, like I said, you mentioned that, while establishing your brand, right? Again, you were, making videos talking about wholesale real estate because people were asking you questions, right? But we all know that as, on YouTube, as you start to gain more subscribers, you're able to monetize, you're able to get potential brand deals. So I know you said that it wasn't your intent to do that, but when that first deal within brand popped up, like, can you walk us through that, the motions of what that looked like?
So I'm trying to think back to my first affiliate or brand partnership month. I think my first, after working with a product for a while that I used without the intention of working with them as a partner, I believe that it worked so well. And with having a personal brand and having the attention, right? Because when you have a personal brand, you're doing what you call your day trade attention, and other people need the attention that you have garnered. I think it was around 20,000 for the month, my first one, when I partnered with my first software. And then as I started seeing more problems within the industry, I started to create my own softwares to fix certain problems. So from $20,000 a month as a personal brand, and I mean, just being able to speak about a product, to now where our personal brand does somewhere around, maybe 300,000 or 400,000 a month. Right. So those are, it's important. Right. But it's difficult for me to kind of talk about it because some people take it wrong and think that that's what they need to go out and actually do, is build a social media brand for themselves. And I think what happened is when I created my brand for myself and became the authority figure in whatever it was, right? So if I was a plumber, I'd still be the best plumber out there, right? Now I would put videos out about how I'm the best plumber and how to fix this and how to do that and how, just kind of showing people how to do simple plumbing things. So I can repeat this same process, whether I'm cutting lawns, plumbing, new construction, or I'm selling hot sauce. It doesn't matter, whatever it is, I can repeat this same process. But building that brand is important. And then having those brand deals obviously can help fuel your business and whatever it is and your partnerships that you're doing. So brand deals are important. Right. But it's a core business and a product is more important than that, I believe, 100%.
No problem. So one of the things that I kind of want to call out and maybe kind of help you if hopefully, let me know if I'm wrong in this manner. So please, again, you're not going into this saying, hey, I need a brand deal, right? This is one of those things that it was more, not to say passive, but it was one of those things that as you were going on doing your regular day of business, right? Because there's some people who are YouTubers, right? But you are a business owner or an entrepreneur who's you're documenting your journey, right? So there's a sense of practicality in terms of what you're doing with your day to day. So as time goes on, people, other brands or other individuals who can make these decisions, they probably see certain things that you do and say, hey, our product, our service can help you, right? And then that kind of just fits along with your, essentially with your mission, right? It helps you with the bigger picture. So I definitely understand where it's like how those two things can be blurred, right? Because the medium is the same, but the way that you approach it and the way that you use it is way different than what the typical route that you might see on the day to day.
Yeah, I'm not a YouTuber.
Right.
I'm an entrepreneur that has a YouTube channel.
Right. So one of the things that you kind of grazed over, but I'm not going to let you, right? So you were saying that as you were, using different software and different things of that nature, you mentioned that you built your own software, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it sounded like you did it because you had a pain point. You had something
Correct.
that was like, hey, I need a solution for this problem. And, I guess we're trying to figure out, hey, there's not available. So can you talk us about how you kind of get into, entrepreneurship, then into wholesaling? And then it sounds like you run a tech startup too.
Yeah. So, I mean, every business has to solve a problem, right? And you have to have sales. So when you're able to solve a problem, which was a problem I was personally having, and we won't talk about exactly what the problem was, but it was a problem in my business that I needed to help solve. And as I started to solve it for myself and I found the solution, I thought, well, how many other people in the same exact field have the same problem? So then I hired some people to go out and build this solution on a more scalable way, and we were able to sell it. And so I've done this twice now, and me and some partners, we've done this twice. And so now we have two software companies that solve a problem within the real estate industry that they both do, several $1 million a year in sales within that same industry. And I think so as you start to grow your business and as you start to be a problem solver, right? Because that's what we are as entrepreneurs. We're just problem solvers. And as we start to solve problems, you're going to see that there's things that you can solve within your own industry, right? We call these verticals, right? So when they say millionaires mostly have 7 streams of income, it doesn't mean I sell hot dogs and I'm a trucker, I have a lawn care company. It's different verticals within the same thing. So I'm in the real estate field. I have 2 software companies in the real estate field. I have a construction company. We do development. So all of these things, all these different verticals within the same field allows me to grow fast because we're not just outreaching in several different types of markets, if that makes sense.
No, most definitely. So, so I know you now, like kind of being more in the present day, right? You have your wholesale real estate company, right? Mm-hmm. That, you have these different businesses that, essentially complement each other, right? And mm-hmm. that they are able to operate within their own right and essentially do those things, right? So I know you're multifaceted, right? You just don't live, breathe, and sleep real estate. No. So as things go on in terms of like your brand and different things, like how do you introduce these other, I'm not gonna say hobbies, but these other things that you love to do or that really interest you? How do you now introduce those things into what people are more used to seeing from you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing, right? If you're known as this guy, you don't want to be typecasted your brand into certain things. So you slowly start to introduce to them these different things you're into. And so I say I spend less of my time actually on real estate and more on these other things that I have involved with. So I have a plane manufacturing company that we just recently starting to open in Winston-Salem, where we build planes and sell parts and stuff like that. I'm also a pilot where I fly my own personal plane. So you start to introduce these things. I have, like I said, other software companies, and we're just launching other stuff because we see new verticals within the software company. But yeah, it's important to slowly start to introduce these things to your brand. But I think that's a much bigger problem on a grand scheme. That I think it really you'll find that solution when you get to that point in the road. I don't think it's that important for anybody starting a business or currently have a business. These are just simple problems that you're going to figure out moving forward in your business, anyways. If that makes sense.
No, most definitely. So when it comes to, I mean, again, like the journey to create different businesses and to build them and things of that nature, I'm assuming that there's some problems or some challenges that are in every single one, mm-hmm. right? That might, like someone who might be starting out as an entrepreneur, who might be early in their process. What are some of those things that you saw like that you think is something that the typical entrepreneur might not see?
Well, it goes down to some of the basic things in business, right? Accounting. You want to make sure you have a bookkeeper. You want to have accounting. You want to have when you start to scale your business, you want to have great HR practices and company policies in place. These are things that can make and break you from the beginning. But as you start to grow, it's the hardest. I always say the hardest part about having a business and starting a business is hiring the correct people. It's the variable, right? Because most of us entrepreneurs can find a product that we can make, sell, and duplicate, but then you add the human element to it, then you have to start dealing with personalities, personal lives, all these things that come with part of running a business. That's important to learn. So one, you want to make sure your books are good. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business, right? You don't have a business. Make sure you understand your KPIs, which is your key performance indicators. What numbers are you tracking in your business? What goals do you have? Do you have, are you tracking certain things? Do you know what marketing piece is making you the most money? Do you know which marketing piece you need to stop because it didn't bring you any money? These are things that you need to know as an entrepreneur. And if you don't know these things early, then it's going to be hard to go back and try to track these things later. So learn these things early. Good bookkeeper, good accountant, just those are the basic things, and find a good HR payroll company and learn how to develop company culture. And what I would say to do that is find a company that you like out here, whether it's Apple, whether it's whatever, and then dig into the CEO and dig into to see if they have a book and kind of read how they make their company cool and try to go out and do the same thing.
So, I got to ask, so what company do you feel like that you emulate the Max Maxwell brand in companies against? Like what is the culture that you're trying to cultivate?
We try to have a fun work experience. It's serious at times, so it's very fun. So one for me is Apple. I love the Steve Jobs type thing, right? I can be a very tough boss, but also very forgiving is at the same time too, very, very into what my employees are doing. And we like to have a good workplace like Google, where, you can have fun at work. You want to come, you can come in late, you can leave late, you can come in early, you can, all these things. And that's because you want to have that work environment, but we're also very goal and results driven. And you can do that with team culture, with work culture is being able to have a good goal orientated, competitive, friendly, squad. And that really helps as well too.
Yeah. The Google culture is definitely something that I admire, like the idea, and we're trying to implement it within our organization in terms of specifically like the work week. If you remember, like where it's like, hey, like those first 4 days, like give me everything that you got. Right. Like, and then that fifth day of the week, like, or say like from hour 31 or sorry, from hour 31 to 40, then, work on something new. Like, let's try to have something that can be innovative, something that can help push the needle forward, that can help us separate ourselves from the competition. Right. Because, ultimately, like, I want to be invested in what my team has to offer. Right. Because I know I can't think of everything. Right. Someone might say something and they might say, hey, like, I've been having this idea, but I just don't know how to drive it to the finish line. And I think creating that culture of that team working culture can definitely help, push you forward. Right. As an entrepreneur or a business owner or whatever you decide that you want to do, or even as an entrepreneur. Right. Some people might not necessarily want to start a business, but they might want to own something, or they might want to be in a space within their company that they work for, so that they can, kind of show their value, kind of pushing forward.
That makes sense. Yeah. And you got to remember, as your company grows and you start to hire employees, you got to remember that they don't work for you. You actually work for them. And you need to
repeat that. You got to repeat that. You got to repeat that. Go ahead again.
So when you start to build a business and you start to hire employees, you have to have the attitude and remember every day that they do not work for you, you work for them. And if you keep that in mind, you're going to have a beautiful workforce and a great company where people are going to be fighting to work for you.
All right. So someone, a mutual friend of ours also, kind of said something to me. It was like, you have to move faster than, like, say, your employee's next life event, right? Especially if you have, someone who, that works for you and something like that. Like it's kind of the same, two sides of the same coin, right? Where it's like, hey, something can happen for somebody that might change their needs or change what is required for them to stay with you. Right. And then you have to be able to move faster than that. So just so that, if something does happen and say, you know what, maybe I need more money or I might need more freedom, you got to move a little bit faster than they say, hey, you know what, this doesn't no longer serve me. Right. Or, you could potentially lose like some great talent within that space.
Better be in tune to what's going on with them.
Right. Most definitely. So I know we're starting to kind of wrap up here, starting to go on to the second half or the second end of this conversation. So I kind of want to move forward a little bit and talk about some of the challenges that you think that are something that some challenges that you may have faced over the years that you want to be able to I guess warn or to show other entrepreneurs that, hey, it's not just an easy road.
Man, there's so many, right? So I don't know where to start. One misconception that I think is out there is that, start a business with your passion.
Okay.
And that's not true.
Oh, I mean, I know that might ruffle a lot of feathers. So why do you say that that's not true? Why do you think that's a myth almost?
Yeah, your passion doesn't matter as far as will it sell? Is it a viable product? Is it a viable business? That doesn't matter, right? Like, so you have to understand that things are vehicles in your life. And right. So I'm not totally obsessed with real estate. I became obsessed with real estate because I seen that's what worked. But becoming obsessed with real estate and allowing that to actually work, it allowed me to go do other things that I had passions about. Now, those things that I have passion about may not make me any money, but at this point, it doesn't matter. And also that, as an entrepreneur, and if you're a serial entrepreneur, you have the same problems that I have every day. And that's focusing on one thing. Right. So and so I would say you need to focus on one thing, whatever that thing is. You need to go 110% on that one thing so that it can take you to that next level. And then once that one thing takes care of you and some other stuff, then you can go wander. But you got to set that base. You got to have a good foundation. If not, you're just going to keep spinning your tires years every year. So and so that's I'm speaking from experience.
Right.
I always want to do so many things. And sometimes I was doing so many things at one time that you need to get focused on that one thing, get hyper focused, become obsessed, and you'll really see a big difference.
All right. Most definitely. Because if you're trying to move 10 pieces up forward at once, you might miss out on an opportunity that might, really kind of like if you would have took a moment to say, hey, let me just get this to a point where it can run itself or that it can handle, I can bring somebody else in so that they can handle it. That might pay off way more, like way faster in the long run than you trying to have 20 hands and try to put yourself in all these different places.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So there, so in our conversation, I kind of felt like there was some common themes, right? So one of the bigger things that you mentioned about, some of the things that you tell entrepreneurs or people who are business owners to look out for is to make sure they have a bookkeeper, someone that, and you mentioned financial literacy, all throughout our conversation, right? So I feel like that is it safe to say that that is something that you are passionate about, something that you have grown to realize that, hey, this is super crucial and that you need to be super a mile deep in learning it and sharing some tidbits about it.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, our society and our culture, we have been misguided on a lot of things, including what money is, how important financial literacy is. And I think that's the foundation of becoming independent, right? So whether you make, $15 an hour or $1,500 an hour, the principles of financial literacy are the same. They're the exact same. And if you can't manage a $15 an hour job and make sure everything is taken care of, then you're never going to be able to manage a $1,500 an hour job. And so we have to unlearn some of the things that have been passed down to us, right? So you're looking at somebody that's coming from a first generation American, both, Jamaican parents. There's a lot of money myths that have been spread to our community. The famous one, money doesn't grow on trees, right? It actually does. Right. So, so this some of the things and don't get credit cards. know you actually should. If you just need to learn how to use them, right? So it's like it's like if I told you, hey, look, don't get in the car. People die in cars. Yeah, well, if you learn how to drive and you have good, safe driving practices, a car is a great tool. And it's the same as a credit card. So what happens is our fear, our parents' fear, our grandparents' fear has translated into these myths that don't actually exist. It's what hinders us and holds us back. So undoing some of those myths and unlearning some of those things that have been passed down to us generation to generation is something so important. I recently put out a book called Money Myths, The Millionaire Mindset. And it talks about some of these myths and some of these things that we need to unlearn in our community. And because this is unlearning some of these things and putting new thoughts into our brain is what's going to really help us raise the tides and allow all of us to have a foundation, right? Because we've all seen people who were making 3 or 4 times as much money as we were, but ended up broke or ended up whatever. I mean, let's look at athletes. I mean, they have a whole show dedicated to it, a series dedicated to people who have got money and broke. Is because you don't understand financial literacy. So once you understand financial literacy, you really understand the principles and the tools of what money actually is and how you should use it. And then once you figure that out, you'll be able to strive in life. And then you'll and I'll be honest with you, man. I'm blessed enough now to wake up every single day and not worry about money things. And right. So when you're constantly in survivor mode, it's hard for you to be creative. Right. So if you're just thinking about surviving, it's hard for you to come up with these creative ideas and do these things that can help you generate wealth. And so we need to get out of survivor mode by making sure we're secure enough. And in order for us to be secure, we have to become financial literate, and it's going to put us in financial independency. And once we have those things, the entire tide is going to rise, and we're going to be good.
Definitely understand that. And, we definitely I had to pick up a couple of copies of your book for my whole team. All right. Just to kind of understand, like I feel like I'm more invested in my team more than just, hey, like you guys are working with me, right? In terms of trying to help drive the agency forward. Right. And I ultimately, like, I want to be able to create millionaires, like, within my business, right? Like, if I'm doing this only for my own personal gain,
it's so good.
Right, then I feel like that is it's horrible. Like, it's just like I can't expect people to really want to, like, grow with me if I'm only worried about myself. But what I want to do is I do want to open up the floor to questions. Everybody who's on Facebook, you guys can write your questions in the chat. For Max Maxwell, serial entrepreneur, for wholesale real estate, tech, aviation, everything, right? Serial entrepreneur first, like, very key on serial entrepreneur, right? So, but while people are starting to get their questions in the chat, Max, can you tell everybody where they can learn more about you, about if they want to learn more about wholesale real estate, about your book, and things of that nature, as people start bringing in questions?
Yeah. So if you want to check out anything on any social media platform, just type in Max Maxwell. If you just Google Max Maxwell, you see a bunch of my stuff. My personal website is therealmaxwell.com. Check that out. My book is on Amazon. You can just search Max Maxwell Money Myths, and kind of just, explore some things. There's so much information out there to be consumed. We just have to make sure we consume it from the right people, and we're very intentional about why we're consuming it. And, this is a new day. It's a new age. I'm seeing it with my own eyes. We're kicking off a generational wealth tour in 8 cities, starting in Atlanta, April 10th. And it's a free event, 1,000 people. We're COVID friendly as far as we have the 6 feet apart, all masks are being worn. But it's a bunch of my friends and buddies who all been able to generate generational wealth. And we're seeing this new age of us being able to say we've done it. And now we want to pass this information on to people, because it's so important to know what that is, first of all, possible, right? Because if you can't see it, you can't be it. And so now that we're able to show you an example of this is real, we're going to pass this information on to people, because I think it's important that we are all going to the top, all of us.
So the question I'm sure that most people have is that, will this generational wealth tour be making it to the Triad or to like the Western, North Carolina area?
The closest we get is Charlotte. I'm not sure exactly when it is on the tour, but Charlotte, North Carolina will be a place that we'll do. And then if we see a demand for it, I wouldn't mind definitely doing something here in my hometown as well too.
All right, most definitely. All right, so it looks like people are a little shy in the chat. So I guess what we're going to do is just, might just wrap it up. Abria, I know I see you in the background here. If you mind just coming back up here with us so we can, wrap things up with the one and only Max Maxwell. But I want to thank you, Max, and I want to thank everybody who watched for the last hour to talk about, to listen to Max talk about entrepreneurship, generational wealth, and, essentially growing your business. All right. Again, my name is EA Green. I'm the owner and CEO of the Open Media Agency. We're a full service marketing agency in Winston-Salem, focusing on virtual events, micro content, and lead generation. Right. And again, Max has been, instrumental in our growth and the things that we've learned over the time in terms of all the value that he provides and not ever asking for anything in return, which is something that, should definitely keep a lookout for when, those people who provide those gems and then have that hard sell at the end. Right. And I think it's like something that I've learned, something that Max, I'm sure, he's familiar with. But what I want to do is I want to bring Abria back on and we'll wrap things up.
Eric, Max, what an enriching 50 or so minutes that we've been able to have. So many gems. I will say, Max, one of the main things that I'll for sure take with me is all about finding that one thing and really just being the best at it. So thank you for that advice, as well as the encouragement to say that we are all only one sell away, one deal away, one conversation away. You never know. And again, just as a fellow townie, in particular, Winston-Salem is so proud of you, and you're such a great asset and resource for the community, as well as you, Eric, as a young fellow entrepreneur. So proud of you and what you are able to do and providing yourself as a resource and asset as well. And so to our Facebook Live community who is watching, thank you so much for joining in. We will have our next Lunch and Learn, and believe it or not, about 2.5 weeks where we will be talking about the sugars and how to avoid them. So if you haven't already, please be sure to like and follow our Facebook page as well as Instagram. And until then, we will see you online. Thanks everyone for joining.